What's going on, guys? It's Greg here, aka NYPrepper. It is Sunday, February 23rd, 2025, and I have some breaking news to share with you guys. Right now it is 16:19 Eastern Time here in the United States, and we have some major breaking news coming in from the Middle East and from Eastern Europe. So, on February the 19th, Yemen's Houthi rebels launched their first ever attack using surface-to-air missiles targeting a U.S. F-16 fighter jet and an MQ-9 Reaper drone over the Red Sea. The missiles did not hit their targets. Following this incident, the Pentagon has been noted to be preparing for a potential large-scale military response against the Houthis. And this is all being reported by two U.S. officials who confirmed all of this information to Reuters. The officials who spoke on condition of anonymity said the incidents suggest the Houthis were improving their targeting capabilities, and Israeli media sources are now widely reporting that the Pentagon is preparing for a large-scale offensive against the Houthis. So, major breaking news, guys. The Houthis launching missiles at an F-16 and an MQ-9 over the Red Sea. This is absolutely huge news, guys. This is the first time they've ever launched missiles at an F-16, okay? So now Trump has to show the world that he has balls and he has to respond to this situation. Now, this could be the reason why we had those B-52s deploy to the Middle East last week. There were like 3 days in a row where they sent B-52s on dry runs into the Middle East, and they actually did live fire weapons drops, which is pretty interesting. So, major news also in Canada. A subsea fiber optic cable was deliberately cut for the second time between Nova Scotia and Newfoundland. The break occurred on December 24th and was confirmed intentional this week when repair crews identified that the cable was severed with a cutting tool. Okay, so this cable connects the eastern side of Nova Scotia to Newfoundland, and it was cut with a cutting tool of some kind in late December. Okay, so most likely the Russians, this is very, very concerning that the Russians and or the Chinese are now basically in our continent, cutting cables in our continent, okay? So very, very concerning. And yesterday, the Russian military launched one of its largest drone attacks on Ukraine since the start of the war. They launched 267 drones yesterday. 138 were shot down in 13 regions, according to the Ukrainian Air Force. And the latest satellite imagery shows that Russia has prepared 18 Tu-95 strategic bombers for potential launches on Ukraine tonight or tomorrow or the following day for the 3-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine. So 18 Tu-95s would potentially be the equivalent of 200 or so missiles, because each of them probably carries about 10. So very, very concerning. I'm going to be covering the 3-year anniversary live tonight and tomorrow night as well, tomorrow throughout the entire day. I'm going to be on very high alert for any kind of massive Russian attack on Ukraine. But this just shows that Putin is not interested in peace. Even after having talks with the Trump administration, they're conducting these massive attacks, okay? 267 drones. Absolutely insane. And also remember, Russia sent bombers to Alaska 2 days in a row last week, right after the U.S. delegation met with the Russian delegation in Saudi Arabia. So Putin is clearly not afraid of Trump. And yesterday we had some radio chatter on one of the U.S. nuclear war frequencies, and it was coming from Diego Garcia, which is very rare. Diego Garcia is a very small island base in the middle of the Indian Ocean. It's where we keep some B-2 stealth bombers. We used Diego Garcia to conduct strikes in the Balkans wars in the 90s and also in Iraq and Afghanistan. So this could potentially mean that the Trump administration is getting ready to conduct strikes on the Houthis or some other group in the Middle East in the coming days, potentially even Iran. And we heard some news yesterday that Ukraine started launching Neptune anti-ship missiles into the Bryansk region of Russia. And we know that Ukraine is now building up their forces on the border of Bryansk. Bryansk is right next to Kursk. Kursk is the area of Russia where the Ukrainians have invaded and occupied. And now they're apparently trying to expand into the Bryansk region, which is just to the west of Kursk. Apparently 10 Ukrainian brigades have built up on the border. Well, now they're shelling Bryansk with anti-ship missiles. So that's definitely a sign that Ukraine is planning to invade Bryansk. And according to Politico, U.S. allies in Europe, in addition to NATO, are looking for ways to safeguard top-secret information from the Trump administration due to fears by some European intelligence officials that certain officials in the Trump administration, specifically recently confirmed Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, could publicly reveal or leak classified information related to European security. A former senior official with the British Secret Intelligence Service, also known as MI6, stated that when it came to highly sensitive projects, they had to be careful about what they divulged to the U.S. during President Trump's first term, further stating, "We were even more cautious the last time with Trump, and I find it hard to believe the service won't be a little more guarded this time." Wow. So very concerning. And a column of Russian armored vehicles with red communist Soviet-era victory flags were struck by drones on a Ukrainian minefield in Kursk on February 26th. The red flags on the Russian tanks were Soviet victory flags, also known as victory banners, which were raised over the Reichstag on May 2nd, 1945, and have come to be recognized as a symbol of Russia's victory over Germany. Russia's display of World War II victory flags could indicate that Moscow will stop at nothing until they achieve absolute victory, making peace negotiations more difficult. The flags also reference a time when Moscow controlled Ukraine and other now sovereign nations in Eastern Europe. And we also have information that Russia wants Trump to pull American troops out of Eastern Europe and NATO troops out of Eastern Europe. He basically wants NATO to go back to 1990 borders. So basically all of the Eastern Bloc countries, including Poland and Romania, would no longer have American troops or NATO troops. Okay, so the Russians are demanding that from the U.S. delegation. And the office of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has announced that the 600 plus terrorists that were set to be released from Israeli prisons in exchange for 6 more hostages that were released this morning from the Gaza Strip will not be released due to Hamas's continued violation and humiliation of the hostages. The release of the terrorists will be delayed until the release of the next hostages is guaranteed and without degrading ceremonies. Okay, so they released 6 more Israeli hostages yesterday, Hamas did, but they have these weird ceremonies where the hostages are like forced to kneel down and the Hamas terrorists are standing above them, and it's just really bizarre, and basically forces them to recite some crazy stuff about how Israel is evil and blah, blah, blah. And so Israel's not happy about that, so they canceled the release of 600 Hamas terrorists that they've been holding in prison. So guys, Israel is really bending over backwards to get these hostages back. Okay, 600 terrorists in exchange for 6 hostages, guys. That is definitely not a fair deal at all. But Israel wants its people back, and they care about their people, unlike Hamas. And the German defense contractor Rheinmetall received a major order from the German armed forces to provide logistical support for the relocation of military forces in and out of Germany in the event of an invasion of NATO's eastern members. Okay, so the main German defense contractor, Rheinmetall, has received an order to provide logistical support for moving forces into and out of Eastern Europe. Okay, so this is very concerning. It means that Germany is preparing for a Russian invasion of Eastern Europe. Countries like Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, and Poland. And this update was sponsored by EMP Shield. Guys, EMP Shield has created a special discount just for you, the listeners of the NYPrepper channel. If you go to empshield.com and use the promo code NYPrepper, you can get 15% off your entire order. And why do you need an EMP Shield? Well, this is a special device to protect your vehicle, your RV, your solar generators, your radios from an electromagnetic pulse, which could be caused by a solar flare or potentially a rogue country like North Korea detonating an electromagnetic pulse weapon over the United States that's mounted onto a satellite. So protect your vehicles, protect your RV, protect your radios, protect your generators with an EMP Shield. Use my promo code NYPrepper to get 15% off. Installation is super simple. This is a veteran-owned business, 100% American-made, and the EMP Shields have been tested by the military, okay? And free shipping is included to the entire continental United States. And the link and the promo code are in the description below this video. And the UK is reportedly preparing to send Eurofighter Typhoon fighter jets to support a future air policing mission over Ukraine. The Times of London cited a senior government source as saying that an air policing mission for Ukraine would make sense, although also warning that it would need significant numbers of aircraft as well as ground-based air defense systems to protect the jets on the ground. Okay, so the Brits are getting ready to send Typhoons into Ukraine for possible air policing, guys. That is huge. They've already talked about sending up to 30,000 troops into Ukraine. They said that they're going to actually deploy them to Ukrainian cities and strategic locations to protect them from Russian forces if Russia were to make some kind of a major breakthrough and push towards, let's say, Kyiv or some other large city and other strategic sites, nuclear power plants, etc., gas pipelines, then those UK and French forces and other European forces would be there to stop the Russians. This is huge, guys. We are watching the opening days of World War III right now, and now they're talking about sending fighter jets into Ukraine. And the Polish president, Andrzej Duda, met with President Trump in the White House this weekend. He was the first European leader to visit Trump in the White House this term. After their meeting, the Polish president reported that Trump said he was going to increase U.S. military support for Poland. This comes after President Duda has acted as a mediator between Trump and Zelensky following their recent tense back and forth in the past week. In a phone call with Zelensky, Duda cautioned Zelensky to stay committed to the course of calm and constructive cooperation with Trump. Okay, so major breaking news. The Polish president becoming the first leader of any country to visit the White House. Clearly a sign by Trump that he is not interested in meeting Western European leaders, because the Western European leaders are supposed to be visiting, I believe, tomorrow or Tuesday. We have Macron and Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of the UK, going to the White House to talk to Trump, I'm assuming, about the security situation. It does appear, based on what I've been seeing on the flight trackers, that NATO is very concerned about a Russian invasion of the Baltics and possibly Poland this year. Okay, we know that Russia is going to be moving 150,000 troops into Belarus this summer for an exercise. Guys, you don't do exercises with 150,000 troops, okay? It's physically impossible to do an exercise with 150,000 troops. Do you know how big of a training ground you would need to train that many troops? So this to me sounds like a forward deployment into Belarus, and that's exactly what they did before they invaded Ukraine. And Trump has reversed course and now said that Russia did in fact invade Ukraine, but added that Zelensky and Biden should have taken steps to avert the invasion. He claimed that Kyiv would soon sign a minerals agreement with the U.S. as part of efforts to end the war. And Trump said yesterday that the U.S. is pretty close to a minerals deal with Ukraine. He said, I think the Ukrainians want it, they feel good about it, and it's a big deal, but they want it, and it keeps us in that country, and they're very happy about it. Okay, so guys, there's a lot of misinformation out there about this minerals agreement and everything that's been going on with Trump. There's a lot of people who are Democrats that are basically using the Ukraine issue to make Republicans look bad and make Trump look bad. But potentially this minerals agreement could be a good thing for Ukraine because, number one, they would get weapons in return. And even if they don't get a lot of weapons in return, still there's American mineral rights in Ukraine. There's American ownership of Ukrainian oil and gas pipelines and energy facilities, and therefore Russia will not be able to strike these areas or attack these areas because they're going to be under America's control. So this could potentially be Trump's clever way of deterring Russia from striking Ukraine with these massive missile strikes, attacking their energy, etc., etc. As if America takes over the energy of Ukraine, then Russia's not going to be able to strike the energy anymore, right? Unless they want to go to war with us, okay? Because that would be like if the U.S. struck a Russian pipeline in, the North Sea or something, okay? But this could also escalate the situation too, because Putin's not stupid, and he might get pissed off that America is making deals with Ukraine, one of their mortal enemies, okay, making minerals deals and sending in American companies to explore for minerals and energy in Ukraine. That could piss Putin off, but we'll have to wait and see. I don't see that there's going to be any kind of miraculous peace agreement. Ukraine said they're not going to sign anything that requires them to give away their territory or surrender to Russia, essentially. And that's basically all that Russia wants. They're not going to go for any kind of compromise with Ukraine, because why would Russia want to compromise? Number one, it would make Putin look weak, okay? Around the world, it would make him look weak, like, he has to sign this deal because he's losing. And then number two, Russia's actually gaining territory every single day in Ukraine. They're actually slowly winning now. Okay, so why would Russia want to sign a deal at this point? It doesn't make any sense. It's not in Russia's interests. Okay, but get prepared, guys, because Ukraine was Russia's first big move in a series of more big moves, okay? Ukraine was never meant to be the final step for Russia. It was meant to be the first step, okay? So after they feel like they're done with Ukraine, then they're going to go into the Baltics. They're probably going to try to close the Suwalki Gap, or they may just attack NATO directly in Western Europe and European capitals. And Zelensky confirmed that the U.S. and Ukraine are working on a new draft agreement for the minerals. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent departed from MacDill Air Force Base on Friday for a meeting with Zelensky on this new deal. So Bessent is reportedly there right now, which is very concerning because there were over 260 drones that were launched at Ukraine yesterday while Scott Bessent was potentially in Ukraine, okay? And we know that the 3-year anniversary is tomorrow. And Friedrich Merz will be the new chancellor of Germany. He just won the election today. And what's interesting about Merz is that he was very hawkish on supporting Ukraine. And he recently said that Europe must stop relying on Trump and the U.S. to protect us. I am not sure that he will invoke Article 5 of the NATO Charter in every situation and without conditions. Europe must be prepared to defend itself. We need to discuss with France and Britain whether their nuclear umbrella can also protect us. Okay, so this is very, very serious, guys. We have a pro-Ukraine hawk in control of Germany now, and he was the guy that actually wanted to give Ukraine Taurus missiles, okay, in contrast to Olaf Scholz, who was against providing the Taurus missiles. So things are just going to keep escalating, guys. There's not going to be any miracle peace agreement. Please continue to prepare, okay? Wake up. The UK government will announce another package of military aid for Ukraine and new sanctions against Russia on the 24th of February, on the 3-year anniversary. And the British Foreign Secretary said, based on Russia's speeches and what Lavrov said at the G20 foreign ministers meeting, the British Foreign Secretary does not see any appetite by Russia for truly achieving peace. And reportedly, the transfer of the first batch of 30 Belgian F-16s to Ukraine has been postponed for at least a year until the end of 2025 due to delays in deliveries of F-35s from the U.S. So that's pretty disappointing news. 30 more F-16s that were going to go to Ukraine are now being delayed because of delayed replacement deliveries of F-35s to Belgium. And Trump replaced the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Charles Brown, with Dan Kane. And Iran's armed forces are now going to begin large-scale military exercises, which could be a sign that they're getting ready to attack Israel again. A couple of days ago, the leader of the IRGC said that the next time Iran strikes Israel, it's going to basically be devastating, and they're going to try to cripple Israel completely in their next big missile attack, which they say is still coming. And the director of the FBI, Kash Patel, as well as most, if not all, other national intelligence agencies, including but not limited to the CIA, NSA, and DIA, have instructed their employees to not respond to the email sent to all federal employees last night from DOJ. An email was sent out last night to all federal employees, even those not under the Office of Personnel Management, by Elon Musk's Department of Government Efficiency, demanding that they reply to the email with 5 bullets of what you accomplished last week and copy your manager or face a forced resignation. Several agencies and departments, including a number in the Department of Defense, have already instructed their employees not to respond to the email, as they are not under DOJ's purview or the OPM. So Elon Musk is overstepping his boundaries, okay, sending out these emails to the Department of Defense and the FBI and intelligence agencies demanding that their employees respond with 5 bullets explaining what they accomplished last week while copying their manager. So this is very concerning, and the intelligence agencies, the DOD and the FBI, are not allowed to share with anyone what they do, because that would be a huge violation of classified information and potentially compromising ongoing investigations if we're talking about the FBI. So Elon Musk is really pushing his boundaries here. And last night we had a massive amount of reconnaissance over Eastern Europe. Something is definitely brewing in Eastern Europe. You can see here this recon drone patrolling the border of Bulgaria and Serbia again. Okay, the last time they did this was over a week ago for 3 or 4 days in a row. The U.S. had this recon drone patrolling the border of Serbia for several days in a row. This could mean that Serbia is getting ready to invade Kosovo again. And then here we have 2 recon planes that were patrolling northern Poland, the Suwałki Gap, and the Baltic countries along the border of Russia and Belarus. We also had a U.S. sub-hunter patrolling the coast of Kaliningrad, and it was flying really low over here, trying to detect Russian subs off the coast of Poland and Lithuania. And then also we had this Estonian Air Force plane patrolling the Gulf of Finland, flying only 700 feet above sea level. So that is really low, keeping an eye on this area for any Russian warships or Russian subs. And then we also had a U.S. sub hunter fly up to Russia's Northern Fleet base near Murmansk in the Barents Sea. This is where Russia keeps 2/3 of their nuclear-armed submarines. And it took off from Iceland and met an aerial refueler from the UK up here near northern Norway, and it stayed in this area for a very long time. This is very unusual, and it could mean that the U.S. is concerned about Russia's nuclear posture, potentially ahead of the 3-year anniversary of the war in Ukraine. They could basically see how many Russian subs are in port or out in the sea here, and that could determine what Russia's nuclear posture is. If they have a lot of subs missing from their port, that means that they're on combat duty, and that means that Russia's nuclear posture is very, very high. So this is very concerning. And then here we have some footage from Alaska showing the Russian bombers that flew to Alaska last week, literally just 12 to 24 hours after the U.S. delegation met the Russian delegation in Saudi Arabia. So clearly, Russia is not interested in peace. They're laughing at us. They're mocking us. Okay, literally 6 hours after we have peace talks with Russia, they send bombers to Alaska, and then they launched 260 drones at Ukraine yesterday while the Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, is visiting Ukraine to sign this minerals deal. I don't think Russia's afraid of us, guys. They feel unstoppable at this point, okay? So here you can see a Russian fighter jet, and you can see a U.S. F-35, and then here you can see the Russian bomber here, okay? So you can see 2 Russian Sukhoi 35s escorting the bomber, and then a U.S. F-35 right here, okay? There's the F-35, there's the bomber. So things are continuing to escalate, guys. Get prepared, okay? There's not going to be any miraculous peace deal. The only person that can save us is Jesus Christ. And here we have some video footage coming from Lebanon. This was at Nasrallah's funeral today. So Nasrallah, the leader of Hezbollah, who was killed in September by an Israeli airstrike, had his funeral today. And while they were carrying his casket, Israeli fighter jets flew overhead. Wow, huge message from Israel. Okay, literally flying their fighter jets over the funeral. Wow, absolutely insane. And then here we have some reconnaissance in the Gulf of Oman and the Persian Gulf. A U.S. high-priority recon plane flew through the Persian Gulf and the Gulf of Oman, an RC-135 combat scent, and then a U.S. Navy MQ-4 reconnaissance drone in the Persian Gulf as well. And then here's the email from Doge to the DOD and to the FBI and to our intelligence agencies, saying, please reply to this email with approximately 5 bullets of what you accomplished last week and CC your manager. Please do not send any classified information, links, or attachments. Deadline is Monday at midnight. Okay, so they've already instructed their personnel not to respond to this email. So looks like there could be some tension between Elon Musk and some of our agencies, especially our intelligence and defense agencies. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. I will be back potentially later on tonight with another update. At the very least, I will be monitoring the situation tonight with the 3-year anniversary, because remember, Ukraine is several hours ahead of us here in the U.S., so it's actually almost the 24th over there. Okay, so potentially tonight, Russia could launch some kind of massive strike on Ukraine. But that's the latest breaking news that I have. Also, remember to download my app from the Google Play Store. Right now, my app is only available for Android, and you can download it free in Google Play. The link is in the description below this video, or you can just search NYPrepper, one word, no space between NY and Prepper. Just search NYPrepper or NYPrepper Emergency Alerts, and you can download my app. And the app is for me to send out notifications to you. So every time I post a video and I go live, I can notify you so you know and you don't miss anything, because YouTube has a tendency of not sending out notifications. So don't rely on social media to keep up to date with what I'm posting, okay? Download the app. I can also send out emergency messages to you guys if things are happening really fast. I can send out quick messages to you and update you guys with what's going on. Also, follow me on Telegram and Twitter. I post all my updates over there. And until next time, take care, God bless, and don't forget the 3 Ps. Prepare, practice, and persevere. Culinary out.